Live from America's heartland, this is the Daily Truth Report with your host, Noah Christopher.
Hey, all right. Welcome back, everybody. On the screen is our good friend, Jovan. Hey, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Like I say, open invitation anytime you want to come on. I know you're a busy guy, but this is always fun for me more than anybody. So thanks for doing it. Well,
Not a problem at all.
Yeah. Well, last time we had John, we're going to talk about some different things today, but last time we had John, we spent a lot of time talking about forensic analysis of the Trump assassination. And for anybody that missed that, I'll put the link to it down below because that video just went absolutely viral, and for good reason, because I mean, you broke it down like nobody else has really since then. So I don't want to rehash all that. People can watch that old video, but it's been a few weeks since we've talked. And, you know, of course, the mainstream media has totally forgotten about the story and they don't want to talk about it. And, you know, you even have some people, crazy people saying that, oh, you know, he never really got shot at all. Look at that ear. It just healed up perfectly. I mean, the ear, they just put a little bandage on it for a couple of days and now it's healed.
Right.
And I think that's nonsense. You spoke about that last time, but I just wanted to open it up briefly. Any updates that you've seen or any additional work you've done on this that you can share with us? Anything new?
The sad part of it is it's out of sight, out of mind with most people, right? I mean, come on, they tried to kill the president of the United States. That's a big deal. But the other part of it is I still have a tremendous amount of questions about it. I do not believe by any stretch of the imagination this kid was the shooter or the only shooter. But here's what concerns me now. You know, last time we talked about the angles and stuff like that. And then we found out immediately the FBI went on top of the building and just washed off all the blood immediately, which is normally what you don't do because you have to have a forensics and bioremediation. Here's what sticks out for me now. If you go back, and anybody can do this on their own, look at the photos that did get published of the kid shot in the head. Yeah, you see a little blood on his head, but the issue I have is the kid's teeth are basically protruding from his lip, meaning they're protruding this way, which means they're out. That connotates a shot, not here, like they said, but from the back of the head. Now, what bugs me even worse than that, if you look at the video or photos of his body laying on top of that metal roof, when somebody is killed instantly, a la a headshot, or even in a wreck, if you're killed instantly, the way they know is there is no blood loss because the heart's not pumping. It stops instantly. So there's nothing to push out. That's how forensics on a scene tells somebody that, hey, yes, they died instantly. Second, when you look at a headshot is not bloody per se. It's really kind of like a hand lotion pink. So when you think about a headshot and brain matter, and you think about a headshot being an instant death shot, I have two questions. Number one, if you look at the photos of the kid on the roof, the trail of blood running behind him, down the roof on the slant to his body is over 20 feet long. And it's not pink, it's bright red, meaning a very dark congealed red. Now, remember, on a warm day, blood's going to coagulate fast. That means there was a lot of bleeding for this kid basically to bleed out. So that connotates that it wasn't a kill shot. But last but not least, you know, damned if we don't find out now that unbeknownst to anybody, the body was cremated. Right. Just gone. Imagine that. So there's nothing to study, nothing to analyze. I don't know if anybody's seen a final autopsy report, but I got to tell you, this stinks. It stinks to all high heaven. Nothing matches up with what standards forensics is. And unfortunately, I think it's going to be swept under the rug, and it has been, you know, out of sight, out of mind. We shouldn't let it go, though, but we shouldn't run off on all these other theories. We just need to look at base items, and we should be pushing for freedom of information requests to see what they have from the hospitals and or the coroner's report.
Yeah, well, it's the cremating the body. It's just like when they claim they killed Osama bin Laden and loaded him up on a boat and sent him out to sea. Remember that?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that really does tell you all you need to know. And then, you know, seeing the officers up there hosing off the roof the day after.
That's so far out of protocol. Yeah. Like I said last time, I want to see all the footprints that were up there in the dust. We would have had so much more forensics. They got rid of it all. And that was our own government.
Yeah. All right. Well, there we go, everybody. That's the latest on that. Sadly, we certainly continue to cover it here, but brick wall. It's absolutely getting swept under the rug, and it's they're going to do their best to make sure you never talk about it again. And
I just want to correct you.
yes,
It really isn't a brick wall. This one's a little more subtle considering our administration. It's really a prick wall. Slight difference.
That's fair point. Well, what are we talking about today, Jovan? So we're a couple months out from the election. The assassination attempt is almost like they want to pretend like it never happened. But what's on the roadmap? What should people be watching right now?
From the time we're recording this right now, people need to understand, folks, we are less than 66 days away from our November 2024 election. Now, you need to understand, we have Jack Smith, who has now re-indicted President Trump. They learned from the Supreme Court decision. Now they're going to say, well, he was acting in personal capacity. They dropped some of the charges, reflavored the other, convened a brand new grand jury, as if that makes it new. Yes, it's a different grand jury. But instead of parading witnesses through, what they did is they had FBI men come in and read the previous witnesses' testimony that got the grand jury to indict anyway. So it's kind of smoke and mirrors crap.
Wow.
But what's most important is we all know that Jack Smith doesn't technically have the authority or standing or been appointed correctly. Now, when you look at all of these things, the 2020 election and what happened is still unresolved. The 2022 debacle again in Arizona, still unresolved. Many of this stuff has not been solved with our voting systems or anything like that, still not resolved. They have, since in the last 4 years of this maladministration, they've probably put 8 million illegals on our voter rolls. Now, let me explain what that is so you understand. The other day, I sat down for 3 hours with Roseanne Barr, and we talked about this, but I explained to people that when part of this ICE debacle of getting rid of ICE and everything else was when all of these illegals came across the border, our authorities asked them a simple question in the paper intake. And the simple question in the paper intake was, why are you coming to America? And of course, the people say, well, I'm here for work. I want a job. What this administration, this maladministration we have did was handed these illegals a piece of paper that said, well, if you're going to work in the United States, will you sign here and promise to pay taxes? And of course, they'll sign because they want in the country. Now, here's the hook. Our government has been giving these people Social Security cards, the very thing that says we're a tax-paying citizen. They have handed to these illegals, but it doesn't stop there. They then tell them to go to Motor Voter and you need to get a driver's license or ID. Well, these illegals go to Motor Voter. In the states that have Motor Voter combined, go to the DMV and say, I need a driver's license, I need an ID. Well, when the driver's license bureau says, well, I need ID from you so I can give you a driver's license, these illegals hand them a Social Security card. Well, automatically the DMV assumes they're a legal citizen. So they give them a driver's license and an ID, but they automatically register them to vote. Now, doesn't even stop there. Now what happens is when that driver's license is mailed to them and they pick it up, about a week later, they get a voter registration card. Now, it's illegal in every single state on the books law that you cannot vote if you're not an American citizen. It's a federal law. You cannot vote in our elections if you're not an American citizen. But they snuck in a little sneaky law that said, well, if you're an illegal and you don't really know you can't vote and you assume you can, and therefore you do vote, well, it's not a crime. Now, think about this. Our government is going to send them a driver's license. A week later, they're going to get a voter registration card. Do you think they can vote? Do you think they think they can vote? Of course. But you know what? It's even worse than that. Let me tell you why. All of these NGOs, non-governmental organization, nonprofits that are all ingesting these illegals in the country and getting them set up, well, the illegals use that business's, that nonprofit, that NGO's address as their official address in the United States of America. So what makes it more sinister is it's not really like the illegal's going to go in to vote. Chances are they're not. One location in one state has 30,000 illegals registered at that one address, and that state is an all mail-in ballot state. That means that place is going to get 30,000 mail-in ballots. And by the way, if the state sends you a ballot, they assume you can vote it. And so when that ballot is hacked or cracked, open up, vote it, and dropped in a drop box, that's what the ballot mules do, it's going to count as a legal vote. So they have put on our books 4 million minimum. Some say, I think it might even be more than 8 million illegals that they've been able to put into our system and drop automatically on motor voters. So it's going to be a problem. Now, why I say that, we're 66 days away from our election. Nothing is going to change, period. Here's what I mean. No new voter laws are going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be done. These illegals are not going to be taken off the voter rolls. Why? State and federal law says you can't remove anybody from the voter rolls 90 days prior to the election.
Mm.
Ironically, you can add them the day of, but you can't remove them. So we're kind of SOL when it comes to that. So it doesn't matter. People like Jack Smith have no standing. It doesn't matter that they're going to continue to persecute President Trump. It doesn't matter that Kamala's dumber than a stump. And I actually think Maxine Waters is smarter than her. But if you think about all of that, nothing's going to change. Here's what I want you to realize, folks. What we're going to do now is we're going to do a scientific discipline. Play along. We're going to do a scientific discipline, which is called game theory, chaos theory. Now, Noah, you're going to answer for the audience. Okay. So
all right.
complete the sentence for me.
I'll do my best.
People are telling you that if Donald Trump gets elected president, he is going to become a
dictator.
Okay, that's number one. Mark that in your noggin, folks. Then they say, look, all of these MAGA people are horrible. They're bad. They just want to control you because all of these people, they are what?
Nazis,
fascists, white supremacists. Get it? So put all of those words in your noggin. Now, you know, and I know that if you and I were back in time in the 1940s, and by the way, I'm a first generation American German. I'm American first, but my family's all German. We went through the Holocaust. I lost family in the Holocaust. I know exactly what Nazism is. You and I, if we went back in time and we saw that crap, we'd try to stop it. So you understand they're like tickling your brain back there that this is evil, this is evil, this is evil. Now let's go back to Antifa, BLM, George Floyd, and everything else. Did the police arrest any of those bad actors?
Not a single one that I know of.
Not at all. So what's happened? Now, if you put those together, what you're seeing is the plan, meaning people that have been riled up over race, people that have been riled up over whether you're gay or straight, and they think we're white supremacists and we're going to suppress them, and Trump's going to be a dictator, and that's what fascism is, and that's what Nazis are. And you get in the streets and you riot and burn and steal for reparations and Nikes, you're not going to go to jail. So what they've already done is trained people to get in the streets and to act up, and that we're the bad guys. That was all training. People have watched that happen since 2015, right when Trump announced. Now, if you take that in context, let's do a little bit of chaos theory and game theory of November 5th, 2024, which is 66 days away. If Donald J. Trump wins, what's going to happen?
They're going to melt down. It's going to be riots in the streets.
What else is there going to just describe what you think could happen? They rioted over George damn Floyd. What do you think's going to happen when the dictator Nazi king gets in office?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be summer of 2020 on steroids. I mean, times 10.
You better believe it.
The pallets of bricks being dropped off. Cities literally on fire, boarded up. I mean, we saw it once already. This is going to be 10 times worse.
That's right. Now let's add a little sweetener in there.
Oh, and by the way, also I predict shortly after that a huge stock market crash. They'll crash it on Trump to blame it on him. Yeah.
Absolutely. So here's the sweetener in the mix. You know that President Trump is America first. It means these illegals, they're being sent back to their country. What do you think when the Biden administration, maladministration, has let 10 million of them in, and a very large majority of those are Honduras, etc., emptying their prisons of gangsters, rapists, murderers? Now, do you understand what's about to happen? That's the sweetener in the mix. So there's going to be all hell break loose with Donald Trump winning. Now, let's kind of reverse it back. You've got to understand, we all lose. We're caught in the crossfire. No matter what, come December 5th, all of us lose. It's only to what degree do we lose? I'll explain Trump first, since I did that. It is going to be such intense, horrible chaos. It's not going to be little Palestinian idiots or environmental idiots blocking the roads. It's going to be, everything's going to be coming screeching to a halt. It's going to be bad.
Yeah.
It won't be permanent, but it's going to be bad. Now, let's set that aside.
Okay.
When Kamala gets in,
Mm-hmm.
if that's what happens, what's going to happen?
I literally think it's over. I mean, I think she will throw Trump in prison. And then, I mean, he's been the only one standing in the way. I mean, I think it's just open season on Americans.
You're right. But what's going to happen immediately? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen immediately. Number one, all of these rat bastard criminals, they're going to be partying in the street. You think a World Series partying where they burn down a town is bad. Wait till you get something like a Kamala in. Every one of these gangsters and cretins are going to come out, and it's going to be open season on conservatives, open seasons on the supposed Nazis. They're not going to send us to jail, and we're just going to go clean this shit up. Now, that's going to be complicated by the fact that any logical, linear thinking citizen that is a constitutionalist knows we're a republic and not a democracy.
Mm-hmm.
We got a good chance of people getting out on the streets.
Right.
It's going to be war. Put a pin in that. Either way this goes on November 5th, we're in trouble. One longer and maybe permanent. That's Kamala. One very intense, but it won't be permanent. But here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
The cabal is no longer after power. People need to understand that. See, the cabal is in power. We know it.
Mm-hmm.
So what are they after?
Mm.
They need one thing to fall to make every one of these plans fall in place. What is the one thing they need to fall?
I would say the USA.
That's what they're doing. But to make the USA do the belly flop, there's still one thing they need to make happen. Get rid of our Second Amendment.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We are the only country still standing with super high gun density. None of the other countries in the world compare. All of the other countries that gave up their gun rights went socialist, went communist. It's over. They're dominated.
Right.
We're the only country standing in the way of a global cabal because most all of us have multiple guns. What they really need now is a reason to terminate our Second Amendment rights.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, they need civil war.
Yeah.
They've got to declare martial law. They've got to outlaw our guns. That's the tipping point. That's what they're going after. And unfortunately, when it comes to November 5th, folks, I'm telling you, don't get out on the streets. Try to keep your calm and cool. You don't need to get your gun and camo and get in the street. You just need to worry about your front yard and your backyard, folks. You need to take care of your family. Because I tell you what, they're going to make an example out of all of this. You've got people out there that are conservatives. We're going to get in the street and we got to fight. It hasn't come to that until it comes down your street, comes to your front door.
Right.
But I'm worried about people with knee-jerk reactions that have this bravado. And I got to tell you, how stupid is it to show up at a Trump rally in camo with guns? That's just playing into the enemy's hands. You follow what I'm saying?
Totally.
If anything, dress up like a libtard and dye your hair pink, folks. Just, do what they do to us. But we're going to have a problem. And the biggest problem, unfortunately, that happens, especially if it's taken and they put Kamala in, I am worried about this deep division they've done the antagonists that have supposedly paid on the conservative side, we got to get in our streets, we got to do this. They're going to use that. They're going to use that to rob us of the one thing that keeps us safe, and that's our Second Amendment. And I'm telling you, that terrifies me.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, because I that's so powerful, and I want everyone to hear that. And I want to say it just one more time, because I've published many articles on this. Keep your cool, keep your head about you. Do not do something stupid. Do not give a reason. Do not get all caught up in this. Don't do something violent. We are not the party of violence.
We are not.
So I have published that article probably 10 times because I want the warning out there. I agree with that 100%. I'm so glad you said it, and we're going to blast this out to everybody. Devil's advocate question, then, I guess,
right.
because I'm 100% with you in that, but I could just almost hear someone in the audience asking this. At some point, if the American colonies had that attitude, we're still run by the British, right? I mean, at some point.
Not true.
Okay, walk me through that, because someone's going to ask about that. They're going to say,
well, you know the answer. Ready? Fire when you see
the red coats.
It was even more than that. What was the saying in the American Revolution? Fire when you see the whites of their eyes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We're not talking about the redcoats, folks. You could have seen that from far off. What the stand was, and what everybody misinterprets, was fire when you see the whites of their eyes. That means when they come to your damn gate, when they come to your damn door. Folks, here's what I'm saying. Where we are in this battle right now, we've all been fighting for years. Noah, myself, and others been fighting to keep our country safe and to make sure our country stands free. Where we come now, which they've perfectly played this game, is they're going to try to erupt us into civil war. This is where it takes discipline. And this means the way you protect your country right now is stand your ground on your front and your back doorstep. That's it. Don't even leave your yard. See, you got to remember, because when you're in your yard and you're in your home, you have legal standing. Yeah. You step foot in the street, and in fact, it's a crime to cross a street with a gun. Did you know that? With violent intent.
No.
Stand your ground. That's why a stand your ground law works, because you're at home with the threat. Okay. And so what worries me is people will think, well, we were Americans in revolutions and we did it. No, we did not. No, we did not. We armed ourselves. We got prepared. We got ready. But the actual military instructions was do not fire until you see the whites of their eyes. This is no different. And so you have to be prepared for that. And if you get up, if you get your damn Rambo on because you think you're Mr. Machismo, you're probably the guy that cuts everybody off, runs with your loud truck gas packs to prove what a big penis you have, which basically tells me you are hung like a toddler. But anyway, and you get out and do that stuff, you're going to go down into history as the dumbass rat bastards that cost us everything. Be mature, be wise, protect your family, stand your ground. And that's that we all have standing. Now, think of this. If people get in the streets, it's going to complicate it, because what they're going to do is they're going to say Trump orchestrated, Trump was the leader. It's what they're trying to do now with conspiracy and coup laws, and that he gave the instructions to do it. All those dominoes are going to fall. Don't play into their hands. Do not do that. Literally stand your own ground where you have the law, state and federal, on your side. Stand right damn there. But if you're these guys that think, oh, I'm going to put on my flat jacket, and I know it doesn't go over my belly button because I got 5 stomachs, but I'm going to look cool, knock that shit off and be mature and understand. Don't be the new Benedict Arnold, and that's the dumbass that gets out there on the street and thinks he's going to play Rambo. Don't do it. Protect us all. Just stand your ground for your family. That's where it occurs. That's where the line is drawn. Wait till they come for you and you see the whites of your eyes. And if it happens, we will prevail. But if you get out and do your little bullshit marches and stuff, we're sunk.
Oh, come on. Now this may be the most important video we've ever put out. And that is why we have Jovan on this show, because that's fantastic. I know there's more than one person out there that was going to ask that question. And so that is just the most brilliant answer I've heard to that. And,
Well, you have
and
to
critically important.
You have to understand history. So many people shortcut on history. Yeah, America had slavery. It was 1.6% of Americans that had technically what were slaves, but most of the owners were black, and most all the slaves, over 90+%, went to South America. If you don't dig into this stuff to really know, you'll be triggered by history. We've been here before. We have been here before. I tell people the story of, do you know when the last flashpoint was that we almost had a civil war, but a place and two people in history because of it? Do you know the last time I'm talking, we came this close to civil war? Do you know what it was?
Wow. No.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
It happened in Arizona. Amazing how Arizona is still at this. Now, you know of this place that I'm telling you, the president was this close. He actually went to Congress and asked for the deployment of federal troops. And Congress says, we can't do that in America. We've already had a civil war. That's posse comitatus. We cannot do that. We cannot deploy federal troops. But it came this close. Because they're trying to figure out how to solve a problem. Now, the problem they had at the time is there were these bad guys. And these bad guys were robbing stagecoaches at a time when our dollar and economy was a silver economy backed by a silver dollar, backed by silver hordes.
Right.
And this large criminal enterprise was not only robbing it, but they had bought off the judges, they had bought off the mayors, they have bought off the marshals, and they had bought off the media. Does it sound familiar?
It sure does.
Okay. And even a lot of this stuff went to trial, and in the media and the trial, the good guys became the bad guys, and the bad guys became the good guys. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah. Carbon copy. Wow.
It's exactly what we're going through right now.
So now, what was it? This is like late 1800s. Is that?
Well, I'm going to tell you because most people just don't know their history.
Huh.
You know every bit of this. The problem is you didn't know the rest of the story and exactly what happened. So all of a sudden in this battle, stealing silver and the American economy almost crashing. By the way, you couldn't get food, you couldn't get beef, you couldn't get goods. It shut down all of the logistics of shipping goods in and out. That sound familiar? Sounds like our pandemic.
Yeah.
But a very interesting thing happened is the media decided they needed to sell papers. And so the media said, oh, this is these Republicans, these Northerners, remember Republicans were Northerners, are trying to control these Democrats, the Southerners. So the newspapers, same as they do today, stoked up this incredible battle saying, oh my God, it's the North against the South, and they're going to try to control everything in our lives. So the Southerners got all up in arms. Now, the bad guys that had this huge mob that controlled the media that was actually doing the robbing, which was now portrayed as the good guys, well, those were all the Southerners, and they were all Democrats. They started stoking this as a way to restart the Civil War to take back over America again. Now, the good guy, truly, the good guy was a Republican. And they portrayed the Republican as a dictator, as a butthole, as a mean dude, as a killer, as an outlaw. That's what was going on in the media. You know the place because it's called the OK Corral. You know the people because it's Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday against the Cowboys. And that's exactly what happened. And it's why Ike Clanton, he never got killed. He went on to stoke that this was a North versus South thing. And we came this close to a civil war because they wanted to deploy federal troops because Ike Clanton and the bad guys got the media to say it was North versus South. And the only way it stopped, see, they had murdered people. They had murdered Wyatt Earp's youngest brother. Wyatt Earp went on a vendetta to wipe out this criminal gang. Wells Fargo, because the criminals were stealing Wells Fargo silver, funded Wyatt Earp to go on basically what was called the vengeance ride to wipe out all the bad guys. But the media played it completely in reverse. And the only thing that stopped it was Wyatt Earp says, for the good of the country, I'll stand down. And
wow.
It stopped the Civil War.
That is incredible.
We came that close.
Wow. I had no idea of that story. Incredible.
That's the whole history. That is why, and you got to understand, in Wyatt Earp's day, when he walked down the street, people would boo him, spit on him, challenge him. And now this is 100% Donald J. Trump all over again. It's like Donald J. Trump trying to walk through New York City or whatever places that are really bad and Democrat. Oh, he's evil. Oh, he's a dictator. Oh, he's a Nazi. It was the media stoking it up to save papers. And it was completely the opposite. And throughout time, let's see, Doc Holliday died when he was 36, right after that. And then Ike Clanton, he got killed by true sheriffs, set up by the government called the Rangers to go fix it with law enforcement, which they did. He got shot. Wyatt Earp lived to 80 years old. He was consulting in Hollywood on movies to tell the true story of the Wild West because the media wanted to portray it as just mean, dumb, ignorant fools murdering everybody. And it was Wyatt Earp telling the truth and people learning the real story, why you have Westerns that actually show heroes, people doing good things against the bad guys, why the sheriffs are well known because the media Easterners wanted to turn it into something else it wasn't. Unfortunately, before the one movie where Wyatt told this story, he died, but it's how we have it, the history, and it's why we know today that Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday actually were heroes that saved America. And by the way, if you don't believe it's the common man, most people, you know about Wyatt Earp, and he was a sheriff, and he cleaned up Kansas because there were a lot of wars in Kansas, and he went to Tombstone to find his fortune. But what most people don't know is Doc Holliday. You know him as Val Kilmer in the movie, Tombstone. Doc Holliday was a dentist who basically had enough and said, I'm not doing this anymore.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah, true story. So we've been through this before. Keep your cool.
Yes. Okay.
Do it within the law. Keep your cool.
Well, definitely the most important message out of this, and we're going to get that message everywhere because it's just essential. We have to do that. We have to keep everybody calm. We don't need. I mean, they're going after J6 people who did keep their cool. They just walked on the Capitol steps.
That's why I said, look, when Wyatt Earp walked to the OK Corral, they literally said. When Ike Clanton and the Cowboy Games pulled their gun, Morgan said, wait, we don't want this. But one of those guys got up anyway and shot. And of course, Wyatt Earp wiped them out. But because that was such a criminal enterprise and had 20 witnesses that saw how it happened, right? They threatened all of those 20 witnesses with suits or killing them. So those witnesses, just like J6 did, turned good people against good people to put the good guys in jail. It's history repeating itself.
So in light of that history and in light of the two scenarios you laid out, basically chaos, no matter who wins, just is it permanent chaos or is it very bad and short lived?
Right.
I obviously, Trump getting in is the better of the two choices, even
Correct.
If we're in for a very bad short period of time. But I mean, and in light of history, how do you see this playing out? I mean, what's our best case scenario? How do we get through it? How long do you think it's going to take? I mean,
well, statistically, most people don't understand in the large urban areas between gasoline and truly water and groceries, you only have about a 3-day supply, right? And I tell this story, I'll go backwards in time. I was speaking at a large conference in Santa Monica. I used to have a house in the Hollywood Hills in Beverly Hills. And I was speaking at Santa Monica at the beach. Now, that was the day that the verdict came down about Rodney King. Now, remember, it's just like George Floyd. Rodney King was higher than a kite on PCP. The cops tried to stop him. He ran for miles in his cars, being dangerous and reckless. And when they got there, they couldn't subdue this big dude, right? And that was when we just got video cameras and somebody's recording the fight and the cops are beating the hell out of Rodney King. But you only saw a very small portion of what really happened.
Uh-huh.
Well, that created a big issue between black versus white. That's how, and the media stoked it. Police brutality, right? Well, I had just been speaking at an engagement, and it just so happened that they had the trial of Mark Furman and the other 3 police officers that were involved. It's why you know the name Mark Furman today. So it came across on the TV, and the verdict came down that they found the police officers not guilty. Now, the trek from Santa Monica, and just coming straight across Sunset, I'm right here at like Sunset and Doheny. It's where the Whiskey A Go-Go, right, is down there on Sunset. And so I drive, right? I'm not thinking about anything, convertible top, doing the nice LA thing. I zigzag up to the top of the mountain. I get to the house. For context, Sylvester Stallone lives right up here. Madonna lives right down there. I'm looking, just down on the balconies and stuff. And I walk out to the back porch to stand and take a look. And as far as I can see, looking down towards Wilshire Boulevard and everything, which is about a 20-mile span. You can see, all on a clear day, you can see about 20 miles.
Sure.
From as far right to as far left as I could see, everything's on fire. And so I say to myself, holy shit, we're in trouble. I run into the house. I turned on the TV. When I turned it on, it was exactly at the moment that a truck driver by the name of Reginald Dennehy, where the rioters drug him out of his big rig and then proceeded to bash his head in with bricks. Most people remember that, and he's just laying in their street with his skull crushed. He survived, but it damaged him. And I go, oh my God, all chaos is unloosed. Now, in LA, folks, you don't have food because you eat out every night. Right? That's just kind of the way it is. You're already doing dinner parties or whatever the case may be. Right? And I'm a bachelor. Of course, I'm out. I have no food. And I'm going, crap, this is going to be a hard time. I get back in the car. I head right down the hill, which is only, 10 minutes down to the base of the hill. And I turn left to where the grocery stores are, headed towards, down Sunset towards the 405 and stuff. And there's 3 grocery stores. By the time I'm headed down the street on Sunset, everything's already boarded up. I'm talking every store, every shop, everything's boarded up. I get to the grocery stores. As soon as I get in the grocery stores, there's nothing. Tons of people, but there's no food. 3 grocery stores in a row. And finally, I knew where this little Korean shop was, kind of up on the hill, kind of like a 7-Eleven stop and go. And I whip in there. And I go in, and the only thing left in this convenience store. Now, I've gone 10 miles down Sunset, right? Or 5 miles down Sunset, actually. And I go to this little shop. There were 2 ho-hos. Now, you know what a ho-ho is? That's that little chocolate cake with the damn pink fuzzy coconut crap on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And 2 yoo-hoos, which is the chocolate drink. That is all there was. That's it. And, of course, I bought it. Get my ass back home, and you sat there. I couldn't leave for a week. They were shooting at the airplanes, right? Different time in my life. I've always been on media. I was about to literally actually go on tour with Paula Abdul doing the Under My Spell tour all across Canada. We couldn't leave.
Wow.
And so you understand the relationship in time. She had just run off to marry Emilio Estevez, right? And we're sitting at home. No food. You don't go to restaurants. And we had to sit there and wait it out for a week because everything was burning. And literally all I had was 2 ho-hos and 2 hoo-hoos. True story. And that was over media stoking black versus white division. Now, that's a singular event like a George Floyd event. This was back, Rodney King. You think it's worse now where they've stoked up everybody, where they tell everybody if you're black or you're brown or you're an immigrant or you're gay, the government hates you and they want to control you? It is going to be a nightmare. And so what I'm telling everybody to understand it, right now, neither party wins. It does not matter what happens November 5th. For a time, either permanent or for a time, none of us win because they've successfully divided every one of us. So you have to be prepared for that. And so you got to kind of get your house in order. Don't put this off. Don't be like me cruising around in a convertible, right? And go get 2 hoo-hoos and yo-hos. You're going to get caught in this crossfire. It's going to happen. And that's why I tell people, start taking care of your food stuff now. And by the way, you got to relearn what your grandparents taught you. That's why I wrote the book, Food Forest Bible, because you know what? We know how to deal with this. We've been through it before. But if you're not taking care of yourself, if you've not making sure you got water or food or whatever, or getting a freeze dryer or whatever, or growing your own food, you're going to be in trouble. And that was the primary reason that I wrote this book called The Food Forest Bible. Now, I've been talking about it for a year, right? But all it is, right, is a way that you should know. It's biblical. It goes back thousands of years. If you will plan your garden and plant it according to this program, it's called a food forest. It's very simple. You don't even dig, you don't even weed, right? And I'm harvesting from my food forest every day. But it's a way to plant a garden one time, plant it right. And if you do it by the plan, that garden will produce for you 10, 20, 30 years. I'm not kidding. It's actually how you do this without the chemicals. We talk about how you bring in the right bugs. There's plants that attract certain bugs. And we go out into our garden. We see this little thing that looks like a stink bug. I'm guilty of it. I didn't know what its job was. But when I looked at it, that little stink bug looking thing is the very thing that eats all of the aphids that are destroying your tomato plants and your cabbages, right? Or you're swatting something that looks like a wasp. Yeah, it's a wasp, but it's an assassin wasp, a parasitic wasp. That wasp job is to find that caterpillar that's eating your tomato plants or your cabbages, your squash. It flies to them. When it stings them, it lays an egg in their skull. And about 3 days later, just like Alien, boom, little wasp come out of the body, and the spider and the worm's gone. But it takes care of your garden. I didn't know any of this stuff. So it's how to get rid of chemicals, how to attract the right things, and how to grow a food forest. And the longest operational food forest planting this way in the world goes back. It's been feeding the same community 4,000 years old. And nobody had ever put it into one book. So I did a hardbound, a softbound, and an ebook. But I'm telling you, it shows you everything. It's everything in here. It's a very simple book, big print. This is hardbound, so you can take it outside. Yeah. But you've got to do it in a way. You've got to learn these things. So we teach you how to plot it out, right? Teach you how to identify the right insects or whatever. You see it, you know it, you do it. Now, let's play this out. Number one, you should be knowing this anyway. Number two, you need to change the way you think about gardens. My goal in my life is not only to get 100% off the grid, but to get 100% off the system. The only two things I care about, right, is my fiber and my coffee. Fiber and coffee. The rest I don't give a hoo-hoo about, right? But that's my goal of setting myself free, because I don't want to be on the system. Now, our parents, our grandparents, for most of us, or our great-grandparents, they survived 2 world wars. But if you go back and look at in any of the world wars, how did America survive and feed itself? You can look it up. It's called the Victory Garden. They just got people to go back to gardening because the infrastructure collapsed. Everything collapsed, even though that war wasn't here. We were fighting that war over there, not even on our own shores. And so gardening and controlling our own food has always saved our ass. So I look at it this way. If everything falls out and everything goes to hell in a handbasket, you better know how to grow your own food and feed yourself. That's what we cover in the book. And so you're covered, right? Your precious children, your grandchildren, and on. But even if the system doesn't break, you should know it anyway, so you have the peace of mind of food security and standing on your own and getting your ass off the system. We have to get off these dependencies. And these dependencies are killing us. We don't eat good foods anymore. This is all the same thing. When I talk about fixing our elections and all that's wrong with our ballots, it's in every aspect of our life. They're poisoning us with chemicals. They're trying to get every one of us on monthly subscriptions of prescriptions, right? It's all about them dominating us economically, where we're just working to survive. We got to get back. Look, mankind has survived longer without schools, with gardens, and basic knowledge than we have been doing this game. We've lost all of this. But I'm telling you what, if you think the pandemic was bad and you didn't get toilet paper, it's only going to get worse. And if you combine it with the fact they are burning down our food facilities, they are trying to get rid of our chickens and everything else, and they're poisoning them with mRNA. And then they tell us we're going to eat bugs and we're not going to own anything. Like in one state, and I think the state may be Ohio, don't quote me on that, but the largest single owner right now is BlackRock.
Right.
because they're taking all the homes. And that's why even, with Switch, people have to take control of their own destiny. Folks, we're still on the tit, whether we like it or not. You just went from mama's tit to the government tit. And by the way, you might not be getting welfare, which is totally fine, but you're living paycheck to paycheck. You're giving it all to the government. They're robbing us blind, and you can't support yourself anymore.
Right.
We can't feed ourselves anymore. We don't know how to grow stuff anymore. Our kids certainly don't do it. Some of our kids can't even change tires. All I'm urging people to do, if you want to be safe and secure, you want to have food stability, because it all begins with food, right here. It's called the Food Forest Bible. And that's why I did it, because taking proactive steps is what brings you peace. If you get gripped with fear and you just sit there wringing your hands, reading blogs, oh my God, he's wearing red tennis shoes, he's a pedophile, 7 rays of light coming out of their head, Space Force going to come see. If you keep on doing that crap, you're going to eat yourself alive. And by the way, it's going to hit you and you're going to die. Stop it. When you just take one step, one proactive step, you can change nations. And I'll give you an example. And people forget this. I'll just take David and Goliath. Goliath was the mega badass warrior killer of the day. Entire armies would go up against this guy, but Goliath would win. Now, why would Goliath win? Because he wiped out 10,000 men? No. Goliath would win because X army over here of 10,000 soldiers would send 1, 2, 3, or 4 of their best badass fighters, and Goliath, because he was a big dude, would whip their ass. But for the other 9,993, they basically became gripped with fear and scared shitless and did nothing. Now, our government does that to us. Then you go to the other side, a kid, David, right? David picked up a stone, trusted in God, trusted that I got to do something, and he did it, and he conquered Goliath. Now, why do I tell you that? Because if you're in a back room praying that we're going to pray and God's going to fix this, that is not how it works. See, God expects things of you. God didn't tell Noah, pray to me a lot and I will fix it. God told Noah, get your ass to work and execute this plan, and you can save it. And see, that's where people have kind of lost that we've been here before. Because when you really think about it, and that's when somebody really, and this has nothing to do with your faith and your connection to God. That is true and pure. This has to do with organized religion. I believe over time, when religion used to also be our government, they kind of wimpified us a bit and said, just pray. Well, that made us stand down. That's not what God expects. God doesn't say, okay, if you pray to me enough, I'll prove I'm a miracle. No, God reaches out and touches people and inspires people to stand up and take care of themselves. That's the godly power we have, made in God's image, right? Made in God's image. That means we have the power to create or destroy. That's the deal, folks. That is the deal. You've got to act. You've got to do things. And with all of it, it took faith and action. So praying's not going to get us out of this, but being inspired by God, knowing that God made you in his image, which means you can either destroy or you can create. You are either the most badass warrior in the world or you're a timid mouse. Which one are you going to be?
You can see why we love having Jovan on the show. This is so good. Well, Jovan, I pulled up on the screen here because as you were talking, it's people always share this story. It's from you're telling some Bible stories here. Right. This is Moses leading the people out of Egypt, and they get to the edge of the Red Sea, and they're locked in and they're stuck. And everyone always reads verse 14, where Moses turns to the people and he said, "Oh, don't worry, the Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still." And they put that verse on plaques and they put it up, and they don't read the next one where God he speaks right back to him. And he says, "What are you crying out to me for? You do it. You tell him. Tell him to move on. You raise your staff. You divide the waters." Now, of course, it's not him doing it. It's
God God. It takes a person. God works through people. And that's the deal, folks. God needs your free will to kick in. You've got to take this step and trust in God, because it works through people, not for people.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, I just had to throw that up there when you were speaking because it was
It's
just
just the truth. I mean,
so spot on.
it's just the bottom line truth, and we forget it. And some people don't like it because I'll use cuss words occasionally, or I'll come across too hard or whatever. But I'm a warrior, right? We're at war, folks. That's not nice. I'm not going to invite you to a tea party when our country's burning down. We've got to fight. But I do know the power we have because we're made in God's image. We have all of these tools. And that's why I use history so much. Folks, this isn't new. We've been here. We've been here. And all throughout history, it took people that stood their ground, had their faith, but executed the faith through actions. And that's what we all have to do. And that's all I'm saying, folks. If you sit there and worry about your food and is it going to be cut off, you are going to get caught. If you take a proactive step, God and how he created everything will provide, but it requires you taking a step.
Yeah, I love that. And I just wrote an article a couple of weeks ago, Jovan, on that very topic, where there does seem to be a resurgence or almost a revival of sorts of people who are exactly the way you just described. People like you, people like me, and maybe they're a little rough around the edges. I mean, Tucker Carlson is like your poster child for it. And I even posted a clip of his recently where he said, look, my whole life, I've been kind of a rough and tumble guy. But now I'm waking up and I'm seeing the only people that have the real power are the Christians, and they're the only ones that know what's coming. And so he's like, I'm on board now. I don't get all of it, and you're still going to hear some bad language come out of my mouth, but I'm figuring it out which side I want to be on here. And you're seeing a lot of those people rise up, and they're not the cleanest people, they're not the most clean cut, but they're fighters, and they're coming around. We're starting to build up the right people.
I think that people don't really realize what's at play. And I'll give you an example, folks. And this happened in your life. You just don't know it. Statistically, when God decided that you were going to come into being, it was a foot race, anywhere from 500 million to 1 billion sperm and one of mama's eggs. And only one of you made it. Now, if you're hearing our voices, you're the one that made it. Not a billion different iterations of you. And now that's divine. That's the spark of life. I could show you a video. The moment the sperm hits the egg, it's like, poof, it throws up this big zinc spark. Well, that's the spark of life that God gave us. We're just not looking at it right. Back in history, when the Romans came in and took over, you didn't know about it in the suburbs. You didn't know about it in the country. All of a sudden, this army comes marching through your lands. They take your sons, conscript them to the army, rape your wife and your daughter and sell them into sexual slavery and cut your damn head off and take your land. Well, God saw fit. For the first time in history, we are the first generation ever of humans that actually get to see the evil right before our eyes as it plays out. Yes, social media is bad, but social media is also a gift. The gift that God gave us with the 2020 crap opened all of our eyes. So you have to kind of think different when you think about the crap they put in your head, which is why my program is called Cut the Crap, Culture, Race, and American Politics. They're crapping in our heads to make us fearful because they can't win otherwise. And so what they try to do is scare the hell out of you so you stand down, whimper, and just surrender. But God didn't make that this way. Every one of you listen to my voice. God chose you to be here at this point in time. God chose you to experience this. God chose you to be suppressed by this, to survive COVID, to do everything to see this fight, because he trusted in you that you would do the right thing. But yet you don't trust yourself.
Oh, that's so powerful. Well, Jovan, I want to ask you about your book because I've got a few questions too. But before I do that, I can't let this go before I forget about it. You just casually mentioned that you were out there touring with Paula Abdul. So what in the world were you doing with Paula Abdul? Backup singer? What were you doing?
Oh, geez. My career has spanned decades and decades. When I was 15 years old, I'm 58 years old. When I was 15 years old, I got plucked out of high school and got a stupid little bit part in a movie. And it was with Jose Ferrer. And it was a particular person's very first movie in the United States of America. And that person was Jackie Chan. And so I became fascinated I can remember being on the set one night, and what I was fascinated with was they could make daylight at nighttime. It was like, oh my God, look at this. Look, because they light up the set and it would look right like daytime. I didn't know that could be done. Well, because of that, I have always been involved in the production industry. And there's a lot of television programs that you have seen, et cetera, that you didn't know that I was the young guy behind the scenes that was either writing, producing, or scripting, or doing whatever, until I came from behind the camera, in front of the camera. And then in later years, you saw me on Fox and ABC and NBC and stuff. Well, back at that time, I was in the middle of a documentary production, and it just so happened I had just filmed Shirley MacLaine, Liza Minnelli, and something else. And we were doing this particular production about entertainers, and it basically put me on the road with Paula Abdul when she's doing the Under My Spell tour. That's when you hear her song Black and White and Opposite Attracts and all that stuff. And the opening act was Color Me Bad. No, I wasn't a dancer. No, I wasn't a singer. I was behind the scenes doing production and stuff. And my job with Paula was to, because my actual role is executive producer. That's the one, a producer, a director of a film says, this is what it looks like through the camera. A producer is the guy that puts together here's where the money goes and whatever. The executive producer is basically the guy that signs the check, writes the check, and can fire everybody. Well, I'm executive producer on this production. And I'm on the road, and we're touring from one end of Canada to the next, documenting all of this for history and for a documentary. But we all got stuck in town in Los Angeles, and I was headed over to film Paula and before the riots broke out. And all of a sudden I get a phone call and says, look, can't be there. Don't worry. Everything's fine. You might not hear from me for a couple of days, but don't worry. I'm fine. Click. That was the phone. Well, holy smokes. It's like, what the hell's going on? And then the riot breaks out, right? Well, come to find out, she and Emilio Estevez had decided to elope. That's when she married Emilio, and that's where she was. That's what the hell she was doing. And all that week, it lasted for a few weeks, actually, but all that week of intensity in the riots in LA, none of us could fly out, whether it be private jet or commercial jet, because all of these gangbangers and just dumbasses were literally flying at the airplanes. And if you've ever been to LAX or any of the private airports where you fly out of, you fly fairly low. So they were literally pelting the planes. And so none of us could get off the ground. I was glad to get to Canada to get out of the mess, but it took us a week to get out. You couldn't go anywhere. There was shooting in the streets, fire in the streets, everything. You just stayed at home. And so that was my little ditty thing from a production side with Paul Abdul. But I've lived a very interesting life. There are many personalities out there. We won't go into it now. But you would know as household names that you don't realize it was actually me behind the scenes calling the shots. Here's what they should look like. Here's what they should sound like. Here's what this production is, whatever. But I will tell you one of the funny things I laugh about today. One of my very first gigs as an executive producer, which kind of got a little scary for a moment. I'm in New York City, and there's a very big production going on. And it's Robert De Niro's girlfriend. He placed her in the production. Her name was Tukey Smith. And I'm telling you, it was freaking atrocious. Just freaking atrocious. And as much as I dislike De Niro because he's just an asshole, I look back now, and at that time, because it kind of little shook me a bit, but I had to walk in, look at this stuff, and know it was De Niro's girlfriend and say, this production's canceled. This is bullshit. We're better to lose money than to keep on. So,
oh man, every time I talk to you, there's like a new layer that I figure out. It's incredible.
It's just, what? My talents have been used many, many, many different ways. In 2000, I retired officially in the year 2000, 24 years ago, when I basically said, I'm done. Right. And ironically, I'd really retired a decade before that, but I came out of retirement for a personality that I created that was just too good to not turn that into a household name. But I had retired in July 4th weekend of 2020. And from that time, I really didn't do anything except write my books and stuff and raise my young son. because I got caught up in the dot-com crash. But during that time, by one kind of hook and crook circumstance, I decided to jump off into the medical field because my mind could figure out how to do this various testing and all this stuff. And so I reemerged in the medical field, and I was doing basically what I call nano analytics. I was doing accelerating diagnostics. And I'll give you an example. When a woman, palpates her breast and finds a pea-sized nodule in her breast, at that time, which is about the only time you can feel it, at that time, it can be too late because it's too big. But when did the woman actually start getting cancer? Well, she started getting cancer the moment the cell became a fractal, meaning it got out of whack and it started to become something else. And so I dedicated a tremendous amount of time to changing the medical field to getting better diagnostics, which I did. But I taught it all to do it using technology. And ironically, the simple camera that's on your phone, because it has better optics than your eye. And I did it not based on high-end cameras, but based on the mobile camera, because we already put out billions and billions of mobile cameras, which means they already brought down the price to being as cheap as it could be. It's while I'm doing that to understanding disease, and I'll give you an example. When your wife got pregnant, everybody's gone through this. You go get a pregnancy test. Your wife urinates on it, and it turns the little line blue. That's called lateral flow chromatology. Science can only confirm that the woman is pregnant when that line turns blue, when her body produces a chemical called HCG. It's at 25 HCG. That's how the medical community is driven. And then you go into the doctor, and the doctor confirms it. And so what I did is, since I knew disease states starts from the moment the cells change, or birth from the moment it changed, I set out to say, I've got to be able to see it earlier. And so basically what it meant in pregnancy tests, you can look up my patents. Instead of waiting for a woman to miss a period or two and then find out she's pregnant, you want to know almost instantaneously. So we was able to develop the ability to see the pregnancy test when there's no color there, which means we can see it at 2.5 HCG as opposed to 25, which basically means literally within 2 days, 3 days of the horizontal mambo, you can see that the person's pregnant. Well, it has huge ramifications for everything in the cancer field and everything else. And that's what I was doing when President Trump first got in. And as we get to 2020, and I'm running my medical company, that's when I knew, when I saw all these flat ballots that shouldn't exist because everything was supposed to be 90% mail-in ballots, right? Well, I inherently knew, well, it's supposed to be folded and it's supposed to be done by hand because it's mail-in. Mm-hmm. That's when I just basically retook the technology that I was doing to see everything in a nanostate and developed what I did to ultimately do the full forensic audit in Arizona, so we could really see what happened to the paper and what was real. So it was kind of that one divine step. I was retired that got me back into it. And now I just realized that everything I've ever done in my life, from a technology or a patent standpoint or anything, has led me to this point in my life to fight for our country. So everything kind of tempered me, got me there, put me through hell and back, lifted me to the highest heights when everybody's saying I'm going to be the next Bill Gates, to having everything crash and burn in the .com and losing all my bankers in Tower 2. On September 11th, and one day you lose $800 million worth of wealth. God brought me to my God didn't bring me to my knees. God brought me to my belly, my chin, and my nose. And I tell a funny joke that, I prayed to God to make me a billionaire, right? I was 30 years old. I prayed to God to make me a billionaire. And God faithfully made me a billionaire. The problem is I forgot to ask for it in cash. And God's literal. It was all stock. Anyway, but that's it. So I've had a very interesting career, and all I say is God loves me twice, and the leftist media has used that against me. And when I say God loves me twice, God loves everybody, but it basically means I have talents, but I actually apply my talents. There are many talented people out there, and for many reasons, we have people that are on the streets that have great PhDs. They either lose their way in life or they really don't know how to apply their talents. And so I'm just really blessed that God has taught me how to apply the skills that He and only He gave me. And now it's just really nice to be able to fight for my country. We're all in this together. Political parties no longer matter. And I do what I do to help other people understand we have the power, not politicians. And that's my very small role in this process.
Oh man, that's so good. Fascinating. All right. I don't know how much time you have. I know we've been on for about an hour. I've got a couple more questions if you have time.
Go ahead. No problem.
I still want to ask you about the book. Just in 1 second, though, I'm cleaning up my notes from everything that I've been writing down during this interview. I wanted to get your opinion. We see stories like this pop up every once in a while, and there's, still the question of, is there some great trap laid to catch the voter or the election fraud in this next election? You see a headline like this that kind of makes you think, just if he's making that kind of a claim. On the screen here, I have the headline. It says Donald Trump threatens to imprison Mark Zuckerberg for the rest of his life if he does anything illegal over the election. Well, that implies that maybe you're watching and going to capture it in real time. I know you're closely tied into that, and I think I've asked you similar questions in the past, but for the upcoming election here in November, do we have any hope of anybody watching this and catching stuff while it happens?
Well, few things. I will tell you first, knowing the president personally and spending tremendous amount of time with him discussing this very topic, that President Trump fights for every one of us. And he never asked, how am I going to be reelected? He asked, Jovan, what can I do to fix this and this and this? What can I do now? What can I do after the election? Now, you can interpret it any way you want, and I acknowledge your interpretation there. But here's what I would tell you, and anybody can do this. See, I focus on the paper, meaning the ballots, and how the system handles it, because that's the methodology to get it fixed. Because when they jerk with the ballot, it's a federal and state felony. Everybody that kind of has told you to focus on the machines, and it's the machines and machine swapping votes, here's what you need to know underneath that. I encourage you to look up the Election Assistance Commission. Go search it in any search engine and put Election Assistance Commission, or EAC, plus voluntary guidelines. What you'll find out about the machines is that the machines and the operation of the machines, the safety of the machines, the cybersecurity of the machines, all of the rules are voluntary. So when it comes to the machines and nefarious actions in the machines and everybody pushing people to machines, there is no enforcement action no matter what, because they're all voluntary. And I'll give you an example. You say somebody swiped or changed 100,000 votes, and I covered this on the Roseanne Barr episode the other day. We did 3 hours together, and I explained how this works. But the reality is, even if 100,000 votes were swapped, and you put those guys in the cross-examination in the hot seat from a legal standpoint, and it says, look, 100,000 votes were swapped here, the system's built to give them an excuse. Well, that must have been a virus. It must have been a glitch. It must have been a boo-boo. But you obviously saw things bad. What would happen in cross-examination when somebody says, well, that's fraud and that's this, all they have to do is say, well, I guess there was a virus there. Now their counsel gets up as opposing counsel and says, Mr. Evil Voting Company, did you follow the rules? And they go, yeah, we followed the rules. Did you make this happen? No, we didn't make it happen. So how do you know you didn't make it happen? And that person sitting in the hot seat will say, well, we followed our best judgment, because after all of the guidelines for cybersecurity, software, or whatever are all voluntary. Boom, case dismissed. Now, is everybody watching? Yes. Are there new ways to watch and detect this? Absolutely. It's a lot of what, I spent several $1 million of my own money doing in Arizona for the people of the United States. We just have to do it better and more efficient, but the system is built for breaks and porosity. So are there going to be anybody watching from afar and we got this? Yes, there will be people watching from afar that can show it. Will anything come of it? No. And the reason nothing will come of that particular feature is because it's unenforceable by law. Period. It's unenforceable by law. There's actually not a law on the books that says you can't change a vote. In fact, if you want to get highly detailed on it, in most states, you have the right, absolutely the right in your state constitution to cast a vote. We know it. What's the definition of casting a vote? Marking a ballot, depositing it in a box. Did you hear me mention count anywhere in there? No. You only have the right to cast a ballot. Now, when you understand about the paper and the structures and the systems, when they willingly violate those systems to do nefarious things, you have a lot of recourse. That recourse is you can kick them out of office for maladministration, and you can actually get elections redone. You can't get them decertified, but you can absolutely get them redone. And that's why I'd encourage you to listen to the Roseanne part, because I explain how that works. And I explained the 3 psychological warfare cons that they released on us for 2020 to keep any of the cases from sticking. And that was the release of 3 nefarious acts to change the entire dialogue to make everybody focus on the machines. Will they do everything they can? Absolutely. Look, these guys, these rat bastards, bats are against the wall. They don't want Trump in. Come on, think about it. Are they going to give it up now? No, they're not going to lay down now. So how do we beat this? Here's how we beat it. It's up to you. And I've even said this to President Trump. When he came out and said, bank your ballot, I said, bullshit. When you vote in advance, you're aiding the enemy with information, because see, they have the right to open those ballots 30 days before the election. Now they tell you they don't count them. It's a lie. See, because they open them, they pre-run them into the machines, but it goes to a data card, which means they can see every freaking vote. Right. On election day, they take that data card, put it into another machine, and they go, okay, it's counted. When you vote early, you're giving them your information. So if you want to really do something for this election, number 1, get all your family, friends, and neighbors together to vote together, and do it in person, period. I do recommend that you request a mail-in ballot. Here's why. Request a mail-in ballot, have it sent to you, but don't vote it, and don't you damn open it in any way. Do not open that sucker. You go vote in person, go with your family, so you got a line of witnesses behind you. You've got a 50-50 odd of them telling you, I'm sorry, Noah, you've already voted. We got your mail-in ballot. Well, you know that's horse hockey because you have it in your pocket. So first you want to get your mail-in ballot. Don't open it, though. And just vote on election day. It's too much to go into now. You can watch the Roseanne Barr show. I'll go into very, very detailed.
Yeah, I'll make sure and put a link below this video to that so anyone can watch it. Yeah,
it's just hardcore information, the findings, and how to do this particular thing. But President Trump asked me last time we were sitting together, he says, if all this stuff was going on, how did I win in 2016? Jovan, what happened? How did I get in if they've got all this stuff? And I said, sir, it's because people got off their ass. That's it. When Hillary says that Trump stole the election, she's saying we stole the election, but somehow Trump stole it from me. No, God put on your heart that Donald Trump was right for this country, and you got off your ass and you went and voted, period. It's as simple as that. It takes action. So the bottom line is, if we're going to do this, we've got to do this in real time and show up. But I know the GOP and everybody else is telling you, no, bank your ballot. We could have a power outage. They could run out of paper. Well, I hope that happens. You know why? Because if they have a power outage on election day, they have to redo the whole damn election. If they all run out of paper, they have to redo the whole election. So I kind of hope that happens, right? Because then they won't have time to recover.
Wow.
But go on election day. They cannot prevent your vote. So don't think, well, we're going to get them in mail, because they can't say, and people just don't know this, oh, the power went out, everything's down, so we're only going to count what we got. No way. They have to let you vote. And so vote in person, vote together, document everything, go together, be your own best witness. And last but not least, a lot of people have come out with apps that says, if you see something, say something. One of them is like Mike Lindell and Frank TV. Go to our Frank TV app, and if you see something wrong, put it in here. For election integrity, we're going to fight. Well, here's the bottom line. The courts have ruled that that's not an affidavit, and they will not accept reports from apps because it can be mimicked, it can be created, right? And so let's say if a million people did that and trusted that horrible advice, and you saw something that was illegal or bad, and you put it in that damn app and you send it in, it's gone down the toilet. Defense for the criminals will say, well, wait a minute, don't you get a discount for My Pillow on that app? They'll say you were paid for that testimony, so don't do it. Here's what you actually do. If you see something wrong, and if you see something nefarious, what you do is you write it down in your own words. My name is John Smith, and I live at this address. And on this day, I went here and I saw this, and you write it all out. And you run down to your bank. Doesn't even have to be typed. You run down to your bank and get it notarized. Now, when they notarize it, that transforms that piece of paper into what's called a legal jurat. Now, why is that important? Well, it's an affidavit. And I want to let you know, as I was battling this 2020 stuff, trying to figure out what happened, supposedly I heard there were 55,000 affidavits out there of people that saw things. Well, it was people that just went to the GOP site and all this other stuff and filled out the forms. Every one of them disappeared. And the ones that were written that did go to court, none of them got accepted by the court because they technically weren't legal, because they weren't in jurat form, which just basically made them a statement. You're giving a statement that doesn't hold up in court. And damn it, if you did it on an app, the judges ruled that spam. So here's what you do. You know, the reason when you sign documents and you sign legal documents or whatever, or a search warrant or a subpoena, the reason it's notarized is because that notary is an officer of the court. So think of it in reverse. You want to go submit this crap in apps and waste your time and think you did something great, or turn around and you put it in your own words. This is who I am. This is where I live. This is what happened. This is what I saw. The key is it has to be in your own words. There are no fill in the blanks. You do it and fill in the blanks, it gets disqualified because it's not your words. You run down and get it notarized. See, a notary, basically, the moment they notarize it, why they write it in the book, they are an officer of the court. Here's what it means. This person, we'll say Noah, has stood before me under oath as if they were in court. I am witnessing this as an officer of the court, that they know if they lie, it's against the law, that this is true and accurate, and they have sworn it's true and accurate. That basically means it's now 100% foolproof court evidence. Accepted by the court. So what do you want to do? Fill out a million little tinky dinks in a Frank speech app, which are going to be thrown in the toilet by the judge? Or do you want the war of a million paper cuts that's automatically allowable by law because it's in the right format, signed and certified by an officer of the court? There's a lot of misinformation out there. So if you get in that situation, that's what you do. And then if after that you want to fill it out in an app, do it. Otherwise, it's all smoke and mirrors to basically make your voice not be heard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, excellent. I'll put the link to the Roseanne interview down below. And we had also done a show, you and I, a while back, really digging into this stuff. So I'll put that one in there too. So much good information out there.
And folks, if you care about your food supply, the link will be down there. Get the book. You should know it anyway. But you know what, folks? Get off this system. You can do this, your patio, your backyard, whatever. You can do it yourself. We're #1 bestseller. There's a reason. We're giving you this ancient biblical knowledge. You can do it. You can have food security. You can live in abundance. You've got to do it, folks. Just take care of yourself. And God, please teach this to your kids.
Yeah. So let me ask you about that. So what about a guy like me? I mean, every summer I try and do a mini garden and it doesn't go that well. I love getting out there and planting the stuff. But, wintertime, everything around here is covered in snow and ice. Is this something someone in the Midwest like me can do? Or
Absolutely. Let me tell you how it works. A food forest has 8 different layers to it. And you'll see it in the book and you plot this out. But if you actually create a food forest, which you use a combination of your native trees that you have, and then, of course, you put in your fruit trees. Think of that as one layer down. So you got your cover, you got your fruit layers, then you got your small trees, you got your bushes, you got your vines, you got your ground cover. When you build this on a grid, which I give you in the book, the way you plot it out, your actual garden becomes its own thriving microclimate. And I can tell you this, done right, following the plan, I can show you all across the country where you can walk out in your yard and everything be frostbitten and frozen, but your garden in a food forest way has its own microclimate and won't be touched by it. And it's because it's working in harmony the way to do it. And it works in all extremes. That 4,000-year-old food forest I told you about sits smack dab in the middle of the desert where there is no water and it's harsh and it's thrived for 4,000 years. It is a way to basically create miniature gardens of Edens that work the way God intended, and you can actually do it.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
And by the way, you don't have to dig, right? I don't dig. Like, I'll give you my potatoes. I talk about it in here. There's an aspect called no dig gardening. Now, I thought you had to dig up the damn ground and soil and toil and dig and whatever, right? Well, the reality is a lot of times when we dig, we destroy the soil. So think about your grass being there. So you got your grass and you turn around and you take soil you have, good soil you have, or you buy soil bags and you spread it out on the ground about 2 inches thick. Then you put in a layer of straw, and then you put a little more soil in it. So let's say potatoes. You take your seed potatoes, you cut them, because you just need one eye per section. You set them on the soil where you want them. And then all you do after you've set them on the ground is cover them with hay. That's it. You just cover them with straw, period, straw, right? Mm-hmm. Now, what you have is about 4 or 5 inches of straw on the ground. Now, this is no dig. Now, what happens is you're creating a microclimate up under that potato. Now, as the potato plant grows, once it gets about 10 or 12 inches tall, all you do is put another layer of hay on it, scoop it up under the plant, and the plant will stick up about 4 inches. You just keep on doing that as it goes up. And of course, when the plant turns brown, your potatoes are there. But here's what's happened. You just part the hay. If you want to see if you got potatoes, you just part the hay and look at them. There's no digging. Your potatoes are going to be nice and shiny and not buggy and not denty or anything like that. And you pull out these great, wonderful potatoes that you don't have to dig for. That's one of the aspects that I cover in the book, and it's called no dig gardening.
Wow. Boy,
and you don't weed
cool.
Because what you did is you used the grass and even weeds underneath. You've covered them. You've turned that green now into nitrogen and the fertilizer you need because everything's on top of it decaying. So it encapsulates it, warms it up, makes this great environment where the bugs live that thrive, and you use the earth the right way, which creates beautiful soil in its own without digging. It's called no-till or no-dig gardening.
And you're saying even if we had snow on the ground within this tree cover and micro garden, I could have maybe some stuff still growing out there.
You can have everything, right? Because see, when you do your food forest right, your trees end up protecting a lot of this bad weather. And when you use hays and straws, you're generating heat. But let's say you're in a freaking horrible area, right? You can deploy other techniques, and we touch on them. You can take, we think of a greenhouse. Well, you could actually take and dig 6 feet into the ground and then put a greenhouse top over it. Oh. Now, you're not doing the whole building. You're just doing a top. The reason you're doing a top is because when you get about a foot down in the soil, you're going to be at a constant 70 degrees. You use the soil against itself. And if you're a real bad environment and you want to plant, you can do that same structure. You go to your neighbors or farms or whatever, you get old hay. Yes, old hay, old bales or old round bales. You roll them up against the side of the building, and because they're decaying, they generate their own heat, and that building will be 86 to 90 degrees, and you'll grow bananas in the snow.
Wow. Okay, that's very cool. All right. Well, I'll put that link as well. Jovan, is it best just to? People are used to Amazon, or should they go to your site, or where should they go?
Well, here's the reality. This is a very high-end 8.5 by 11 full color book. The only printer left in the world that prints in hardbound full color happens to be owned by Amazon. There's no way around it anymore. And this has done wonders for publishing. Now, I don't like Amazon, but there is now no way around it to do it. But I'm telling you what, they've got great policies. They'll get it to you. They get right out. But unfortunately, the publishing industry has changed. And this one book, if you took this one book right here, it's 544 pages. If you took this one book and you went in even to a Kinko's and you had all these pages and want to color copy it, it would cost you $500 to duplicate this book.
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah,
it just would, right?
I believe it.
And so, unfortunately, it is a company that happens to be owned by Amazon, but because it's owned by Amazon, it's populated on Amazon. That's the distribution system. You can't get around it. It's just the way it is, but it's a beautiful hardbound. There's a hardbound paperback and an electronic book. Yes, you can do electronic, but then you can't really take it out in the garden with you. And if the grid goes down, you're not going to recharge that device. But yes, you can't take Amazon out of out of the way to do it. And so outside of that, there's no other way to get it.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Look, we all, even if we don't love everything about Amazon, I think most people still shop there from time to time. So it's just the way it's the way it is sometimes. And they will get it to your door fast. So
yes, they will.
That is nice.
Yes, they will. In the publishing industry, they're very good at what they do. And it just makes sense. And that's why we can bring this incredible high-end all-color book to you, hardbound, and which would be prohibitively expensive anymore to do.
Yeah.
And we had to do it in full color so you can see it. I mean, you can't, like, if I'm just going to find one simple page in here. If you were going to try to identify a bug, I mean, that's super AD photorealistic, folks.
Yeah.
You can't do it any other way. And this is a beautiful coffee table-like book. So that's the hardbound. The paper version is just as full color, but this is in the back of the book. When we teach you to plant your food forest, what we do is we show you all kinds of iterations of plans that people have done that are wildly successful, how to do it. And at the very back in the book, we give you the grid. So you plan it out first. It's all about planning first. But what you're going to find is when you plant a food forest and you do it with your family or grandkids, everybody participates, but they could go back 20 years from now in a hardback book and find where grandma and them planned it and see where everything was put. This also becomes a keepsake. So that's why the hardbound version, great gift, the hardbound version is a incredible coffee table type book.
Yeah, that is so cool. All right, well, we'll have the Amazon link below the video. People can grab that. I'm going to get one. That's very cool. All right,
look, and it doesn't matter how much land you have. This is knowledge you should have anyway.
Okay. All right. Good. So even if you have smaller space, you can do what
absolutely.
you can.
I say side patio, side yard, backyard, front yard, small acre, large acre. You can do it to any extent you want.
Great. All right. Well, so important to prepare. We talk about that all the time. I mean, it's why I talk about things like financially gold, but
absolutely
food-wise, food, water, getting off the grid, so important.
Yes.
A great message. So, and a lot of times people say, well, I'm too late. Well, today's the best day to get started. Today is always the best day to get started.
When you're too late when the system's already broke and you're out.
Yeah.
You're too late when they're showing up your door as an illegal to take over your house because the government's letting it. It's not too late, folks.
Yeah. There you go.
You're hearing this message right now for a reason. It's God knocking on your door, but it's totally up to you and that damn free will, whether you're going to do something about it or not.
That's right. Well, Jovan, let me ask you just before we wrap this up. It's always so much fun chatting with you. We'll have you back on again soon. But talking about preparing, talking about being 66 days out, and then talking about things being ugly one way or the other, no matter who gets in. I know we're all certainly hoping it's Trump and not the other, but it's going to be bad even if he gets in. How long do you think we have to go through that ugly period before he can start fixing things and getting it all calmed down?
Well, you got to remember, let's go back to the Trump administration and realize how much President Trump accomplished with everybody against him in the administration. It's just going to be that magnified. But I'm going to say the rough roller coaster ride part of they're going to throw everything at it. There's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be riots. Yeah. They're already telling people to fight. You got to fight, get in their face. They're giving warning signs. It's going to be a very tight situation where you just got to take care of yourself and your family. That it could very easily take us a year to a year and a half to emerge out of to a reasonable matter. But compared to Kamala getting in and you just have another meat puppet in they control, we might not ever rebound. So a year to year and a half to get through it, to restabilize is short compared to the alternative. Yeah.
All right. Well, there we go, everybody. Very wise stuff. So much wisdom in this. And I'll end with the wisdom that you had early on in this one, which is stay calm, stay cool, stay on your property. We don't need any vigilante justice out there. Don't get out there thinking you're going to go shoot something up or stage a new revolution. That's not what this is about. That's not
that hurts us all. You don't have the right to take it to ruin it for all of us. Don't do it. Just mind your family.
Do not do that. Yes. So there we go. I think that's about as clear as we can say it. Don't you, Jovan?
I do.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have you on again soon. This is a blast every time and always more to talk about. So we'll chat soon.
Thank you, sir. God bless you and God bless America.